So far you have seen how to create post API request and get API request using Playwright and TypeScript. In this video, I will discuss how to create put API request using Playwright and TypeScript. Firstly, we will discuss the manual use case, and then we will see how to generate the token, and by using the token, how to update the resource details in the application server by using the put API request. So let's start with the manual use case. So here I will go to the Postman. So we will use the create booking API here to create the booking. So we got the booking ID here. So we will verify whether resource details are present in the application server or not by using the get API. Then here we have the post API call. By using this post API, so we are generating the token. And once we have the token, so we will use the update booking API, which is a put API request. And here I'm updating the first name and last name. And if you see here, the API response also, so we got the appropriate first name and last name, whatever we have added in the put API call, correct? So if you see the get booking details API here, so we have the first name as Playwright TypeScript by tester stock, and last name is Playwright JavaScript by tester stock, correct? I think I have added some additional keywords here, doesn't matter. So we have updated the resource details currently by using the update booking API. So if I use the get booking details once again, right? So these details might have updated because we have done the update here by using the put API call. So let's hit this API. And if you see here, the latest first name and last name is Cypress by tester stock, and last name is JavaScript by tester stock, correct? So this is the very simple manual use case. So let's start automate this particular manual use case. So we have already automated the post API call and get API call. So firstly, let's generate the token. By using the token, we can update the resource details in the application server. So here I will go to the VS Code. So let's quickly create a one JSON file. That's where we are adding the token API request body. So here I'm creating a one JSON file called token underscore API underscore request dot JSON. So I will go back to the Postman and simply I will copy the token generator API request body and I'll paste it inside the token API request JSON file. So that's a bit about creating the JSON file and adding the API request in the token API request JSON file. Now let's quickly create a spec file under chapter 6. So here I will give the spec file name as 06. So here I'll say put API request dot spec dot ts. And here I will go back to the get API request dot spec dot ts file. Simply I will copy the test from the previously created spec file. Then I will come to the new spec file and I will paste it here. So let me maximize this window. So firstly, let's update the test title here. So here I'll say create put API request using Playwright and TypeScript. So let me explain you what exactly we are doing in this API. So firstly, we are generating the dynamic data by using the Faker plugin. And then here we are making the post API call. And then, so here we are printing the post API response body. Then we are validating the status code, status text, content type. So key names we are validating here. Then finally here we are validating the booking, create booking API response body also. And at the end, we are creating the get API request. And by using the booking ID, so we are creating the get API call and we are validating the created booking details are present in the application server or not. And if you see here, so next we are validating the status code, status text, and finally we are printing the get API response body. Correct? Now let's start generating the token firstly. And once we have the token, we can update the resource details. So if you go back to the our Postman, and if you see the update booking, so we are passing this API request body with headers. If you see the headers, the very first parameter we are passing is content type, that is application slash JSON, and here we are passing the generated token, right? So we are generating the token here by using the post API call, correct? So by using the token only, we can update the resource details in the application server. So let's start generating the token first. So firstly, I will import the JSON file, which we have just now created here, correct? So here I'll say import followed by, I will give the variable name as post API request. Then I'll say from, then here we have to specify the location of the JSON file. So simply I will right click on the token API request JSON file and I will copy the relative path. Then simply I will paste it here. So that's it guys. So we are done with importing the token API request in the current JSON file. So let's start creating the post API call to generate the token. If you see here, so this is a post API call and by using the this particular URL, correct? So we have to pass this URL. Let's copy this URL. So here I'll say generate token. Then here I'm using the await followed by that request object dot, here I'll say post, and inside this we can pass the URL first. So let's pass the URL, that is slash auth. Already we have specified the base URL in the use method. Now here we have to specify the API request body. So for the data property, we have to assign the token API request body, and this will returns me the token API response, right? So that's the reason here I'm assigning to the variable called token API response. So that's it guys. Now by using this token API response, so let's validate the status code and status text. So if you see this API, so we are getting the status code as 200 and OK as the text. So let's validate these two things. So we have already done this. If you look at the line number 60 and 61, we are validating the status code and status text. So let's validate the status code as 200 and OK as the text. So let's pass simply the token API response here. That's it, guys. Now we have to get the token ID, correct? By using the token API response, we need to get this particular token ID so that we can pass on to the put API request. So directly this property is available inside the JSON API response, correct? So already we have the response here, right? So firstly, we will convert this into the JSON type. Then we can get the particular property value. So I will use the, sorry guys. So I will use the API response variable. I'll say await followed by that token API response dot. So firstly, I'm converting the API response into the JSON object. Then I will assign back to the one variable called token API JSON response. That's it, guys. So once you have the token API JSON response, directly I can use the property name after that. Simply I'll say dot and I will add the property name as token. So if I add the token there, I should be able to get this particular token number. So here I'll say token. That's it. Then I will assign back to the one variable called token. So just for the reference purpose, so I will print this token number by using the console.log statement. So here I'll say console.log and then I'll say token colon and then I will simply pass the token variable value here. So that's it, guys. So let me format the whole code and we are done with generating the token. So we will make sure that we are able to generate and print the token number. So let's run this test and see whether we are able to generate the token or not. So if you see here, so our test is working fine. So let's go and check the output here. So we are able to create the booking. So this is our booking ID. So this is the get API response here. And if you see here, so we are able to generate the token, correct? Now by using this token, so we will create the put API request and we will update the resource details in the application server. Let's start creating the put API request. So here I will go to the Postman and I will open the update booking API and simply I will copy the API request body here. So I will create a one JSON file for the put API request also. Under the API requests folder, I'm creating a one file called put underscore API underscore request dot JSON. That's it. So simply I'll paste the put API request body here. So here you can pass the any value for the each of the key names. Now let's import this put API request JSON file in the spec file. So once again I will go to the spec file, like how we are importing the token API request. In the similar way, we will import the put API request JSON file here. So here I'll say variable name as put API request and let's add the file name here. So here I'll say put API request dot JSON. we are done with importing the put API request JSON file here. Now let's start with creating the put API request by using Playwright and TypeScript. So here I'll say create put API request. So here I will start using the await again, followed by request object dot. Here I will call to the method called put, and inside the put, so we have to pass the firstly URL. So let's get the URL from the postman. So if you see here the put API call, so we need to pass the slash booking, and after that we have to pass the booking ID. So let's copy this URI and let's paste it here. And here we need to pass the booking ID. So already we have the booking ID. If you see, if you go up here, here we are generating the booking ID, right? So we are basically by using the post API response, so we are getting the booking ID. So let's take this variable booking ID and let's pass on to the put API call URL. And then here we have to pass the two things. One is the headers and second one is the put API request body. So firstly, let's pass the headers, and headers is nothing but the object here. So let's add the headers first. So if I go to the postman here, so this is our put API request. So if I click on headers, so we have the two headers here, right? So let's pass this content type first. So here I'll say content type colon. So let's pass the application slash JSON value here, and then let's pass the next key and value. So key name is cookie. So let's assign the token here. So we have to assign the value as token equal to token ID here, right? So let's pass the token equal to, and we have to pass the token ID here, correct? So that's the reason what I will do is here is, so already we are getting the token from the token API, right? So we are saving into the one variable called token. So let's pass the token here. So that's it, guys. We are done with adding the headers. So content type is not mandatory here. Without content type also it will work fine. Now we have to pass the put API request body. So by using the data property, so here I will use the put API request variable. That's it, guys. We are done with creating the put API request, and this will returns me the API response back. So let's assign to the variable called put API response. That's it, guys. Now let's start validating the status code and status text. If you see this put API request, so we are getting the 200 and OK. So let's validate these two things, and then we will print the put API response body. Like if I go above here for the get API call, so firstly here we are validating the status code and status text, and then we are printing the API response body, the line number 66 and 65 and 66. So let's copy this and simply I'll paste it here. So here let's pass the put API response for the line number 89 and 90. So firstly we are validating the 200 status code, then OK text, and then here I'll pass the put API response. So here we are converting the put API response into the JSON. Then we are saving that into the, here I'll say put API JSON response. Then I'll pass the same thing here. Then here I'll say put API response. So that's it, guys. So let me format the whole code, and we are done with writing the code. So let's execute the test and check the output. So here I'm running the test. And if you see here, so our test is passing. So let's look at the output here. So firstly, we are getting the post API response, and here we have the booking ID, and this is the get API response. Then we are generating the token, and this is the put API response here, right, guys? So before updating the resource details, that is the first name and last name. If you see the first name and last name in the get call and post API call, so those first name and last names are different. So after updating the first name and last name, so these are the two latest first name and last name, right? So our test is perfectly working fine, correct? So this is how you can create the put API request in Playwright and TypeScript.